In this video we're going to look at backing a piece of embroidery. Here we have one of our needle paintings from the school, and it's been backed with the cotton quilting fabric. Some embroideries like this one we have here, you can use beautiful decorative fabrics. This is a Liberty print that I happen to have, which matches the embroidery rather well. So we have our laced piece of embroidery, and you're going to need a piece of fabric that is about 1 inch bigger than the embroidery itself. What we're going to do is start by folding one side over on the grain line as close as as even as you can make it. You can finger press that down, and then on the embroidery, and it's always best to put a piece of tissue paper down on the table. I've not done that because it makes it a bit loud for the speakers here. You're going to place the embroidery down and have a little rebate of about 5 millimeters there, or 1/8 of an inch. And you're going to put the pin in and just piece the fabric to the backing board. Just need a couple of pins across. Then what we'll do is turn the embroidery, and we're going to fold back the opposite side, and you want to fold it back a little further than you think you're going to need, because when we come to pin this side, we're going to pin the needle away from ourselves and then roll it towards the edge, and that way it will pull out the fabric here. So you pin away from yourself, right in the crease there of the fabric, and roll, and it helps to tighten up the edge. Tighten up the fabric to the edge, like so. I'm going to turn, and then I'm going to fold, simply fold this side under. Just going to remove that pin there for a moment because I want to tuck that in a little further. A little bit tricky to do. Making sure I've got my rebate around the edge to a similar distance, and we'll fold that as well, pin it down by rolling and pinning into the work. I'm going to also pin into the corner to make that nice and square, like so. You're going to work your way around, and then you'll do the opposite side. And once this side's pinned in, you'll have a nice, tight backing. It's going to get tighter once we stitch it. And for stitching, I'm using a curved needle. And if you haven't got a curved needle, you can use a straight one, that is fine. Just gets a little bit trickier to get into the creases of the fabric. And for the case of this video, so you can see, I'm using a buttonhole thread in a dark color. Typically you would match the stitching thread to the color of your fabric, and I like to use a much finer needle, like a curved beading needle, which is much finer, and ordinary sewing thread. But so you can all see clearly, I am using a thicker thread, thicker needle, and a dark color. I'm going to start here in the middle of this embroidery on the edge and work up towards a corner to show you how to work a corner. I'm going to take out my first pin, and I'm just slipping the needle with a knot in the end of the thread under the backing fabric, and let it just disappear under the fabric there. My first stitch is going to come up right in to the crease of the embroidery. I'm going to bring that a bit closer to the camera so you can see that I'm right in the crease of the backing fabric, sorry, not the embroidery, the backing fabric. And I pull through nice and tight. Now, the trick to doing this ladder stitch is if you hold out your thread nice and straight, and you take your needle down into the backing fabric there, just behind the needle, the thread, when you pull nice and tight, that stitch disappears. So I'm going to do the same. I'm going to just hold my thread out nice and straight. I'll go back about a thread's width. I'm coming up into my crease this time. Pull through, and when I pull tight, those stitches disappear. Then we go about down into the, pull your stitch straight, down into the back, and pull through. When you come up to a corner, sometimes you might need to just slip that folded part back a little bit so it doesn't protrude out. And then your stitches, when pulled tight, will cover that fabric. I'm going to show you how to work a corner. You want your stitches to all be roughly the same length. And I'm gauging my stitch length so that my last stitch I want on this side of the embroidery is coming up in the supported fabric of the embroidery and not the piece that we're stitching on top, because it makes it far easier to have the last stitch come up through the crease, take my pin out, and into the corner. This helps to maintain a nice sharp corner on the embroidery. I then go traveling down the next side of the embroidery in the backing fabric, or the embroidery that's being pulled tight around the board, and this will maintain a sharp point. If I were to try to do it the other way, what happens is when you, just show you on this corner here, when you try to go down the opposite side from the point this way, it just makes it curve and kind of blunt the tip of the point there. So we want it to be nice and sharp by coming down in to the corner first. And then I'll travel my way down this side, making sure that I go back a little bit each time on each stitch, and by gauging that you just hold your thread out nice and straight and you go back through and pull tight. It's quite a therapeutic stitch this, and very satisfying when it all goes in with those hidden stitches. Don't worry if you have a stitch that does show. Practice with this will help to hide them, but remember it's the backing. It's your viewers are going to be looking at that beautiful straight fabric on there and not criticize any stitching. And so you just keep working your way around. Once you've got all the way around, the best way to tie off is to just slip the needle back and forth, tucking it under a couple of times. Let's get myself situated here. So I'm just slipping back, coming up once. I'm going to then tuck it back, do the same again, just travel the length of the needle, let the needle do the talking. So I can feel I'm digging into the fabric there, like so. And a third time, just to be secure, come out, whoops, and then you can trim away that thread and not have to deal with any knots or creasing your fabric when you push it back to get the knot underneath. And you will work your way all the way around, and then there you are with your finished embroidery with a nice clean edge to it, nice and flat on the back, and you have your finished piece. Have fun with that.